Seattle who is a non-theist.
And I'm Heidi from, where do I live now? I live in the Colorado Springs area, and I'm a conservative Christian. And Kelly and I have been friends since junior high and continue to be despite the political divisions in our country.
So much about what we're trying to do is to slow down the reactivity in people when they're communicating with someone who believes differently than they do. And part of that slowing down is observing it, is understanding that it's reactivity, and watching what it's doing in the system, in one's own system, so that I'm able to identify, oh, this is just my internal story about what this person's saying and who this person is. And so I thought it might be interesting to say things to each other deliberately designed to provoke each other and give each other time to articulate what's going on in the system, in our system. Does that make sense?
Wow.
Because it can happen in a split second.
Yeah.
I say something that triggers you, your response is like, defend, whatever that is, that you feel injustice, you defend and then attack. You say something that provokes me and I just think, you're threatening my existence. I must defend and I'm going to attack,
That's
And when that happens, that mechanism in that lightning speed, there's no sense of like, oh, this is my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's always that person's wrong. I must stomp them out on some level.
Yeah, that's good. And we would have to make sure that people watching it know we are not trying to be role models of how to ask good questions.
No, this is about playing. I mean, it's a weird form of play, but like when I thought of it,
it's a theater game.
It's a theater sport, right? Because part of learning how to have compassion and curiosity is being able to intercept that kill response, which is essentially a kill response. I must destroy you because you are wrong and I need you to go away.
You're threatening my value system.
Right. So, are you game?
Sure, I'm game.
I don't know how this will go, but let me just start by saying, I love you. You're a very important person to me.
I love you.
And this is deliberately designed to provoke, not necessarily reflective of what I truly believe. But on some level, I think, wow, I'm doing a lot of couching, aren't I? But it's just like, I also want to speak to all of our capacity to hold shadow as well as light, and it's like there are those darker elements in us that do believe these things. So, okay, here it goes. So Heidi, when you tell me that women shouldn't be allowed to have abortions, I feel like you're totally imposing you're imposing beliefs on me and other women like me who believe I should be able to choose. You're imposing your made up belief system, your whole like completely fabricated mythology in a way that now I have to toe that line to make you feel more comfortable. And that's so unfair. In fact, I feel like that's unethical.
What part of it do you feel like is unethical?
Okay, so stop. I just want you to track. You're so
my
good.
heart is racing like crazy, and
Yeah.
I have no spit in my mouth. I'm really thirsty. I need to take a drink.
Okay.
And I notice my breathing is really shallow. I'm having to tell myself to take deep breaths. I feel really tight right here and
Mhm.
kind of shaky, a little bit shaky, and I can feel my thoughts getting fuzzier. Like I
Interesting.
can't clearly put together. It would be much easier for me to shoot back something hateful to you, you know,
As a way to sort of push
as
me
a
away.
way to clear out this fuzz in my brain of having to formulate a really concise, articulate response to that. It'd be so much easier to just say, "And you're okay with murdering babies."
Right. So like, so you have that response in your system, and then following that response creates that urge to attack back.
Yes, because I think it takes far more energy to sit in what you said and truly process it and truly come up with a thoughtful response to you. It's much more difficult to do that.
It is. Yeah, it's like it's all about that mechanism of getting the amygdala response out of the way and going to that prefrontal cortex, which is like I have all of this flooding my system, and yet I'm going to inhibit it, which is the prefrontal cortex,
Uh,
inhibit that flight or fight response and go to a more grounded place.
and I also, I think when you say something like that, it creates so much tension and anger and stuff in me that I want to release it in a big way toward you.
That's fascinating. I mean, because
Like it doesn't feel comfortable to just
uh-huh.
let me think about what you just said. It feels much more natural to say, so you're saying that
You want to murder babies. Yeah.
all this energy in me around that. Yeah,
That's so fascinating because I'm studying core energetics,
right.
and it's a personal processing therapeutic model that really brings the body and its energy movement into play. And it's about like identifying how energy wants to move and then allowing the energy to move so that then you can have more of a clarity of response psychologically, emotionally, uh, and yeah, you just articulated like, whoa, huge energy response. And then the easiest outlet is usually the one that's chosen just to get it to move.
Mhm.
So, yeah, fascinating. Do you want to try me? Give
Okay.
me your best shot.
All right. All right. And I'm going to use this one because we've talked about it before.
Okay.
So, I understand that you have rejected the Bible as the Word of God, um, even though the Bible says that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and no man comes to the Father but by Him. So, essentially, in rejecting Jesus as your salvation, then you are saying, I would rather be in hell than to accept God's way to have a relationship with Him.
Okay, I'm so glad you brought that one. Are we deep? Okay. Because here's another defense mechanism. So very different than what you described to me, but like I felt this mantle come over me,
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
and it was this hardening. Okay, and it was head based. So it was like, oh, she's going into her mythology. Oh, she's just speaking this stuff that I absolutely don't believe. Like, but it also had this effect of like, okay, this sounds really woo woo. It covered over my heart.
Wow.
So my connection to you was lost
Wow.
because I went head, cover heart, and how can I even relate to this person who has an okay, this I know this is going to be like provoking, has an infantile view of reality, okay?
Mhm.
And that's part of the defense system. So it's like defend, armor, and diminish,
Oh,
right?
interesting. Yeah.
Because it's like this, and you are diminished to somebody who's infantile in your beliefs. And so, which completely reinforces my ability to just detach and become disinterested. Oh my gosh.
So the diminished part, help me understand how the diminishing part helps you feel safer.
Right. Well, it's because if I want to take away feel safer because I'm not relating to that, but there's a diminishing part. Why is that there? That's a good question. But the sense is, I harden, I defend, and then the diminished part is almost like a confirmation bias. Like I am doing this justifiably, I'm justified in doing that because you're not going to relate to me and be able to see me at the place that I want to be seen. If you're holding that viewpoint towards me, right? And I have to protect, and it comes from this place of like, because it's what I know to be. So it's a I don't have an emotional connection to that belief. Which is interesting because I feel like religion is like psychological and emotional and spiritual. I have psychological, I have spiritual, but I don't really have an emotional connection to whether Jesus is the Son of God or not. I just don't believe it, right? So, but I lose my emotional connection to you, and I have to justify doing that because that's painful. So I tell myself, well, it's just infantile and it's safer this way anyway. So there's the safer. Sorry, I just had to talk that out.
Right, and thinking also when you said, I feel like you can't see me and I won't be known by you.
Right.
You could put an emotion around that. What does that feel like?
Oh yeah, that goes to a young place. Like, and what I was gonna say, because there was a moment I was like, oh, and then is like I can feel the vulnerable loneliness and pain in that.
For you.
Yeah, like, oh, protect. And I think, wow, that's young. It brings a little bit of tears to my eyes. It's just young.
Yeah. Tell me what you mean.
It's so interesting because I've been listening to an interview of Gabor Mate, who's a doctor based in Toronto. He's like Hungarian, and Tim Ferriss was interviewing him. It's like an epic 2.5 hour interview. And Dr. Mate is really into the effect of trauma on how we relate to people, our health and everything. And he walks Tim through this exercise of like, when did you have a reaction to someone? Like, oh, I had a reaction because they didn't paint my house on time. He's like, what was the story that you're telling them? That they disrespected me. Okay, so what does being disrespected tell you? And just going down that rabbit hole of like, I am unworthy of respect, which goes to a much younger place. And it's all about tracking our deep reactions to people. So
younger meaning something that happened when we were young.
Yes, like younger, both that chronologically, but if you were to sit with that place that believes it, it actually feels more vulnerable, less defended, less put together. All of the characteristics we experience as an adult. Like we have our act together, we know how to operate, But when you go to this place that feels that raw emotion, it does feel younger because it's less organized.
Right. And it comes from that traumatic hurt place.
Yeah.
I do think that this is a good example of why those reactions to each other can be so strong and come from such an emotional place, or even, you did this so many times with your hands that it feels like this, that
Mm-hmm.
this wall is coming between us, or this
Yes.
covering over myself, or a veil, or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, as much as we have been traumatized or have these hurts or wounds from that younger place, if that makes those responses that much stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Like, had you not had the wounding that you had in the area of religion when you were young,
Right.
if maybe that response wouldn't have been so fast and so strong, because it was like
It was
immediate.
like that. Well, and that was also something that came up in the interview. Dr. Mate said to Tim, well, so if you imagined yourself to be the most loving and grounded and, resilient person possible, and remember that situation, what would you feel towards that person? Oh, only compassion and understanding that they probably didn't paint my house in time because of X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
Yeah. And same thing. So, okay.
I have to tell you so physiologically, what I'm feeling now, right here,
Yeah.
right now, is I have this shaking in my stomach that only happens when when there's like an excitement about a connection,
Mm-hmm.
or or there's like some anxiety and nervousness with it too. But it's always when I am feeling really passionate and excited about this content, or this experience with you. And so I think even being able to get to the meta level where now we're not just responding, but we're talking about our responses, that it's I love it, because we really are able to slow it down. And
Mm-hmm.
I really am able, in that place, to empathize with you in the wounding that you experience. And then when I see that or feel that, because I feel that,
Yeah.
I totally feel that wall that comes down. And then it gives me compassion for that. And then I don't say, oh, she doesn't want to know me, or
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't care what I believe, or, she's closed herself off to me, or those places where I go to somehow protect myself from putting my heart on the line again and telling you what I believe, or that I want I want you to believe what I believe, that
Right.
that is putting my heart on it, and then I don't want to go there again. But if I can have compassion for that place for you, then it allows me to keep that connection alive instead of just cutting myself off from you, which I think is what a lot of people do.
Right. And I think that just also just goes back to what we teach people instead of asking, why do you believe that?
Yeah.
Which is diving into that energy that will come at us, instead asking, like, what is it that brought you to that? That's asking for the vulnerability or the story behind it. It's asking for the bigger picture, so that we're not just left with that like uncomfortable belief system that they're spouting at us,
Right.
that's hard to navigate through our defenses.
Right.
you know
I had a very difficult experience this last Saturday. We have a civil dialogue group here in town,
mm-hmm.
and in the past, I've told you this. I've brought my like guidelines for civil discourse, and let's speak respectfully to each other. Let's really try to hear each other's stories. Let's try to do a good job of keeping these connections alive. Well, I've gotten a lot of flack for that from one of the leaders who's like, hey, this is a free exchange of ideas, and how dare you enforce your structure for civil dialogue on our. Well, in my mind, it's a civil dialogue group that needs some guidelines. Otherwise, the free-for-all can end up being a war that I don't care to be a part of. Well, I've been there for a few weeks, and so I went back this last Saturday, and when I walked in, the leader said, oh, you're not, he goes, man, you came back. And I said, well, yeah, I want to be a part of this group. And he's always surprised when I come back because he thinks I'm going to be so offended that I won't ever come back because I'm one of the only conservatives in the group. And so this time when I showed up, he said, you're not going to like today. And I said, oh, really? And he said, no, because all those parameters and things that you feel like are important, they're all out the window today. And this is just today is a free exchange of ideas. And I said, I can do that. I said, all that I would ask is that people would be respectful of each other. That's all I would ask. And people are like, oh yeah, totally. Yeah, we can do that. Well, not too far into it, it became a free for all. And they, around the table, started lambasting evangelical Christians and saying that evangelical missionaries are actually, that their agendas are evil and that all churches are businesses. And the things that they were saying, it was creating such anxiety physically in me that I could feel myself getting more angry and more angry, like, oh my goodness, I am going to absolutely lose it. And I stopped in the moment. I took a deep breath and I thought, okay, I have got to harness these physical responses because they are going to trigger quite the verbal explosion that's on its way.
Right.
And so I breathed and I tried to, take a different position in my chair, hoping to get some blood flow. And the leader was sitting next to me and he noticed how I was becoming more and more agitated. And he kind of like patted me on the shoulder. And so one of the particular men across the table from me, who was being especially vicious with the things that he was saying, I just held my hand up and I said, watch it. Watch it. And he goes, what do you mean? And I said, the things that you are saying are an absolute blanket stereotype over an entire group of people. And I said, I guarantee you that if there are people at the table who have personal relationships with evangelical Christians that are good people that want to love well and care for others and all of this, that you could not make those kind of blanket statements. And there was a woman at the table. She said, well, actually, she said, I have a couple friends who are evangelical Christians. She goes, and they're not like that at all. She said, they're actually really, really good people. I really respect them a lot. They're doing a lot of good in the community and they're really loving people. And I said, well, there you go. Like, let's talk about that, Let's not talk about stereotyping in a whole group of people. It was very hard. I felt like we got to a good place, but had we had some of those civil dialogue parameters in place where people could be taught how to ask curious questions and not be vicious with what they say, that we could have gotten there a lot quicker and not had to have the battle with blood on the table in the meantime. Because once one person starts talking viciously, I feel like other people around the table who maybe have a similar viewpoint, they're like, oh, I could chime in on that. And then everybody starts, and then you don't know what that's creating, what kind of I see it as it's violence. It really
It's a blood sport. It's contagious. Just like you said, somebody smells blood, it agitates another person to go for blood.
And you don't know how you are hurting someone else around the table. You just don't.
Right.
I did have, so the leader came up to me at the end and he said, all right, so now if you come back, I really will be impressed. And he said, I was really proud of you for how you handled yourself in there. He said, I was really worried for you for a while. He said, but I was proud of you for how you handled it. And then a couple of people actually came up and apologized because they said, I realized that was really unfair and that it wasn't helpful.
Wow. Well, so kudos for really regulating yourself and slowing down your response, because your ability to do that allowed those people who apologized to see themselves.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, had you come back and met them with the same level of vitriol that they were throwing at you, they would have felt justified in what they said.
Right.
However that mechanism works. Mm-hmm. But because you were not taking on their energy and throwing it back at them, you became a mirror for them on some level. So, for them to see themselves. So.
Yeah, and that has to be a convicting place to realize that you didn't speak to someone else with the respect that they're giving you.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Oh my gosh, what a rich conversation today.
I know, very much, very much. Yes, I'm thankful for this. And that was a great exercise.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Although there are going to be viewers that are going to be really ticked that we didn't actually answer each other.
No. Well, yeah. I mean, whatever. We're about trying to slow down the conversation. I truly believe that the content is not as important as the connection. We are prioritizing content and losing the connection in the process. What happens if we prioritize the connection? Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm willing to look at this more like, are we bypassing content just for the connection? Okay.
Yeah. Right.
And we can certainly explore that, but there's so much out there that
there's a lot of content out there, not a whole lot of connection.
Right. Exactly. So till next time, my dear.
Until next time.